Over the last few days, we've seen nationwide outrage over the rape and murder of the 31-year-old doctor in Kolkata. We've seen protests in all parts of the country. But the questions that we're asking today, by taking a step back, are more systemic. Why do these kind of incidents happen over and over again? Are death penalties or extrajudicial killings a deterrent enough for these incidents of violence against women to not repeat? Also, what are the major lapses in the investigation? What about the political class? What is their role in ensuring that they get away from doing their job? These are some crucial questions I will be posing to my guest today, who is Vrinda Grover, a well known lawyer, human and women rights activist, among many other things. But before I go across to her, a quick reminder to all of you. Here at the News Minute, we've been focusing very closely on women's safety and issues of violence against women, sexual and otherwise. We do this because this is our commitment and we do this consistently and responsibly. If you like our journalism, then do support us, do become a paid TNM subscriber. Ma'am, before we get into the specifics, I want to know what your observations are on what has happened so far from the 9th of August till today, that's the 16th. What are your observations?
I think what we are witnessing uh, with despair, with horror, with rage, is a repeat. It has not struck this country or a woman for the first time. We have seen this happen over and over again. The first thought that crossed my mind was the gang rape of Bhavari Devi, the attack on nurse Aruna Shanbag, which was in the 70s, Bhavari in 1992, and many such incidents where we have seen that at workplaces, when women are there, they have particular concerns with regard to safety. We have an entire Vishakha judgment and a law promulgated thereafter, or the POSH Act in 2013, many other changes made in the rape law. When you look at what has happened and why people are enraged and rightly so, not just women, families, doctors, the entire medical fraternity, the health workers, the the primary purpose of the Vishakha judgment and the 2013 law is to recognize that there is an obligation on the employer, on the head of the institution, to ensure that there is a safe and dignified workplace. This is a case of rape or gang rape. The investigation is still ongoing. But it is a situation where in a government medical college and hospital, where of course there will be women, including young women doctors who will be doing overnight shifts. That is not news to a medical college. And yet, there is no arrangement for them to rest, for them to sleep with any level of safety, sanity. Here are people putting in 36 hours, 48 hours of shift where they are actually doing work through the night attending to patients. Why is there no room available for them to rest? And I am only speaking on the basis of media reports, that usually they would use the sleep lab to rest. That was not available today because there was a patient there on the 9th of August. So the young doctor, she went to the seminar hall both to rest and to study. Why are there no arrangements? Is it anybody's case that the state government does not have money to fix this? Is it anybody's case that across the country governments don't have money to provide basic facilities to doctors who are doing night shifts and to women doctors whose concerns of safety, physical safety and security, we are not discovering on 9th August? We have seen this happen to women at work over and over again, not just in the medical fraternity, but across the board. And yet, there is no institutional responsibility, there is no institutional responsiveness. And only when something that periodically shakes us, both because of the horror of it, and what it compels us to confront is happening in society, that some noise is made, political scoring is done, all kinds of rhetoric about death penalty. There is no investigation. Nobody has been found. Why is it that the system was not in place? Nobody wants to, those who are in charge, the governments are not engaging with those. People are constantly asking for change. Women are asking for change. Why should a woman doctor die like this? She's a valuable person in society. Why did Bhavri have to suffer? Why is the system not putting in place institutional mechanisms of safety for women, since we are, and we're not going to change that overnight. We are a sick society today. We are a violent society. We will have to confront this. We can stop calling ourselves a great civilization. And no, these are not a few bad apples. There are few times when we nationally get angry, but we are a violent, perverse, sick society that treats women and many others in a despicable, violent way. And these are harsh facts that we can't run away from anymore.
Ma'am, the fact is that there is a great concern for safety of women everywhere. But for the sake of this conversation, we'll focus on workplace. Right? This happened in a hospital. It happens to journalists like me when we go out. I'm sure lawyers, face this in courts. So, what is lacking? Is there a lack of seriousness in bringing measures in workplaces, or is there a more systemic problem here?
I think there is absolutely no seriousness in ensuring that women at workplace are safe. I think we as a society still see working women as interlopers in the public space. We culturally believe that women's primary space is the home, not that they are safe there, but the primary space is the home. And therefore, when they are venturing out here, they are responsible. I saw that one medical college in Silchar or someplace actually started immediately telling women doctors what they should do. So the responsibility of ensuring your safety is thrown upon you, which actually no woman can ever do enough to be safe, which we know. So, because these are things that are seen as well, if you're going to come into the public space, well, somebody may just find you interesting, may think that, you are just somebody who can be preyed upon, who can be used in whichever manner they wish to. So there is absolutely no recognition, despite these incidents coming to light over and over again, and institutions don't invest in them. There is actually under the POSH Act a section which asks for the government to monitor whether the mechanisms of POSH are in place. And just for clarity of everyone, POSH is not being created only as if I have a complaint, I will go to the Internal Complaints Committee. That is one of the dimensions of the POSH Act. It's a comprehensive law which places a statutory obligation upon the employer. This is a government medical college and hospital. There is a head of institution. If these measures are not in place, and each institution and each work and workplace will have different needs which will have to be addressed. That's why I'm saying we are not a country where we have lack of financial resources. It's not a budgetary allocation issue. Women's safety is not a concern because we don't see women as being there as rightful citizens. Institutions that do not ensure women's safety, that don't put in mechanisms, I mean, ensuring that I have a room to go and rest and sleep, how hard is that? And is that not common sense? And we hear that this college just didn't think it necessary to do. Why just for women? You should have for the male doctors also. They should also rest. The nurses should rest. The nurse should also have a place to put her legs up if not required. And she should not have to think that if I'm going to close my eyes and go into deep slumber, I may have to risk my own life in the bargain. When they don't do this, what is the accountability? Nothing. In this case, what has happened? The head of the institution was within 24 hours given another posting. So he has There is criminal negligence on his part in discharging his statutory duties. And therefore, he has been rewarded to go and commit the same omissions in another place. That is as much as we care.
You've, like you rightly said, this is a societal problem. But I want to look at the legal aspect of it. Do we not have enough deterrence in our law? Because we see this happening time and again. You've given examples from the early 90s and 70s, but every few years there is this outrage, there is this nationwide uproar, and then it's almost like things get back to business as usual. So, what is it that we're lacking in law?
Well, as far as law is concerned, we really have the framework in place, the legal regime is in place, the scaffolding is in place. Then comes the question of the enforcement of the law, the implementation of the law. Now, here multiple questions arise. One, yes, the law would have required an immediate FIR to be registered, and actually, just a short while back, I saw the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has issued a notification saying that in the event of any violence against any health worker, which would include a medical doctor, medical practitioner, it is the responsibility of the head of the institution to lodge a complaint within 6 hours, if I'm not mistaken. This notification has just come out from the ministry. So the head of institution should lodge the FIR and a police complaint, especially when you find the corpse, an injured body, where you can clearly see signs of violence. So to say that that this FIR is to be registered under unnatural death, of course it's an unnatural death, but it's not a suicide because you can see the injuries. And surely in a medical college you are better placed than common people to get a sense of what kind of injuries those are. And yet that FIR was done at a later hour. So the law is in place. And in fact, the law says that if an FIR is not lodged, then there are consequences. Secondly, comes the question of investigation. Now, in my experience, many cases falter at the stage of investigation because we do not have professional investigation. And here there are two dimensions of it. There would, of course, be the autopsy report. There would be, today, there's a lot of forensic material that can be seen not just from her body, but from devices, from CCTV footage, etc., etc. Like they're saying they found the Bluetooth earphone of the person the accused who's been arrested. There would be a range of uh, evidence which can be both ocular, it can be circumstantial, it can be forensic, it can be scientific. So there would be a range of evidence which will have to be marshaled together and presented. In my view, there is the our investigation is still very, it's not up to the mark. It will have to be evidence of the kind that will withstand judicial scrutiny. The accused will have a right, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, to challenge each piece of evidence. And the burden will be on the prosecution to prove beyond doubt that these persons alone committed the crime. What we do know is that when crimes of this kind take place, which do attract national attention, there is some kind of investigation that is hurriedly put together. I mean, we have been hearing this from many top leaders that we are going to hang the accused by within a week. Well, you're going to have the worst investigation if you're going to put a gun to the head of the investigator and say, finish the investigation within a week. It will be investigation of the kind that will not withstand judicial scrutiny. Are you creating avenues for people who have perpetrated the crime to escape the consequences? And so the law requires a thorough and rigorous investigation. The new law under which this particular incident will have to be investigated, the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sahita, actually says that cases of rape and gang rape have to be investigated within and charge sheet filed within 2 months, so as to ensure that there is no delay in the investigation. Now, again, coming back to the question of investigation, we have heard that there has been a mob that has vandalized parts of the hospital. So you have a crime scene which has now been attacked and vandalized by a mob. It's actually bewildering when to try and grapple that what exactly is going on. This is the capital city of the state of West Bengal, and there is a large mob that with impunity walks in. The police is says that they tried, but they were outnumbered. It's fascinating. The police across this country gets outnumbered when they're supposed to be there and perform. And this is not peculiar to West Bengal, it's happening across the country, we've noticed. And then we don't know what is left of the crime scene. And the Calcutta High Court very rightly has asked some very pointed questions and asked the state to place proof of that. So there is a crime scene which could not be protected. Now, what will happen? What will be the implications of that as we move further down in the investigation? Because, as I said, neither the media nor the public is going to stay with this case. As somebody who's done rape trials, gang rape trials over 10, 20 years, I can tell you the only persons left is the woman and her lawyer. There is no third person left standing. No media is there for you, no public is there for you. And that's all right. It is the system's responsibility, which is supposed to ensure that the investigation, etc., happens. So, if we are going to lose valuable evidence at this stage, or if we are going to rush through investigation at this stage and file a shoddy charge sheet, there will be very, very serious implications in the long run in the case.
Taking off.
And as far as the law,
Yeah.
just one last thing on uh, the law, as far as deterrence is concerned, punishment is concerned, the 2013 amendments in the law already give a very high threshold of sentence. And this harping and sloganeering for death penalty, we saw it in Nirbhaya. 4 people were hanged in March 2020. The deterrence value of that is zero, absolutely zero. And every single day we see that. And yet, the only thing that we hear, oh, we will give death sentence. To what end? You are not putting in your hospital a room where women can rest. Is that so difficult?
That brings me to Mamata Banerjee's reaction. She is the chief minister, and this is a government-run hospital, like you said. So this entire rally demanding that there is death penalty announced by the CBI by Sunday. There is a deadline given to that even before the investigation is over. Is this shirking from what your real job is? And this call for violence, this call for death penalty, could actually prove to be counterproductive, don't you think?
No, so I think it's not just shirking from work. And we have seen this happen now for some time. Uh, as a crime as egregious as rape, and an issue as grave as the safety of half the population of this country has been reduced to political sloganeering by every political party. The entire issue has become about has been weaponized to score brownie points vis-a-vis each other. It has nothing to do with justice for women anymore, and all political parties are indulging in this. And that is why we are in the situation that we are. And that is why it is the people of the country that are repeatedly taking to the streets and asking for matters to be set right. There is no, maybe a meeting could have been called and said, every single workplace, what have you done? Or let's start with the hospital, since this particular incident concerns a doctor, and doctors are rightly so demanding some action. Why should they be, at the mercy of anybody raping them, assaulting them, harming them? Has any report been called by the state, by other states also? Are the states waiting for some calamity to strike them? Is this not a wake up call for every single institution in this country? It's not peculiar to West Bengal that rape has taken place. As we speak about the West Bengal rape, we know there are other very grave incidents that have happened in
There's
Bihar and
another
other
one being
places and
reported
many
from
others.
Tamil Nadu today, from Coimbatore, just today. So, yeah.
Right, right. So, has every institution called for a report and said, where is the safety audit? Ask the women doctors of the hospitals, let them do a safety audit, let the nurses do a safety audit and say, these are the gaps. This is where we feel a discomfort. This is where we feel unsafe. Why has that? And yes, that safety audit can be done in 2 days. And yes, those reports can be tabled in 2 days. And budgetary allocations can be made and systems can be put in place within a week. I agree. That is the work to do within a week. Has anybody called for it? All that is happening is that we are now using the bodies of women to make to score political points, and there is no investment whatsoever in changing the system. This is really, we've all been left to our own devices by the entire political class. Let's have a safety audit of every workplace and let the women do the safety audit and present the reports. And I think we should do it on our own. We should not wait for governments, because governments are not, they are not going to care for our basics. I mean, this is really, how much more? They're not asking for a salary hike or something more to be given to them. How much more basic can it be than to say, when I go to work, I don't wish to feel unsafe. So those are things that could have been done, but the weaponization of these issues started long before, and it continues.
While there is a lot of anger, and obviously it's all justified and it's quite natural, there are two sets of reactions that are worrying. One is, like we discussed just a little while ago, the call for death penalty immediately. The second is also the kind of pressure that it puts on the police. And the concern here is that, like what we saw in 2019 in Hyderabad, after that horrific rape of a veterinarian doctor, there is a chance of police indulging in extrajudicial killings just to make sure that there is instant justice served. Is that also concerning?
Absolutely, you're so right about what you say. So, and I just for clarity, I am appearing in the Telangana High Court on behalf of women's groups in the Disha encounter matter, where, as we know, a Supreme Court appointed commission under Justice Sirpurkar has actually said that it was an extrajudicial killing by 10 policemen of the party, and that there was no encounter whatsoever. It was all staged. So we do have, both for purposes of investigation, and as you said, we don't want the police to become trigger happy in these circumstances in order to please the public. I think when we look at these kind of demands, and I saw this very closely even in the post Nirbhaya protests, which the epicenter of which in many ways was Delhi, but which were taking place across the country. We have the there is a despair, and I will not deny that there is a fear, there is a despair, there is a people, we don't understand that after each such incident, we are running out of options. That what are we going to seek? The law is in place, yet they keep happening. So what is wrong? And so our demands, I remember at that time there were demands for castration. People don't even understand what castration means. There were demands for castration, there were demands for death penalty, and of course the Supreme Court, which I disagree with the verdict completely, yielded to the collective conscience and said, the so-called collective conscience, and awarded the death sentence to four. One was already dead in the jail. What we are therefore seeing is that we are saying there is violence, patriarchal violence, being committed upon bodies of women, where women's bodies are targeted, and with impunity they are targeted. And we are saying we are going to address, so as a society we are now saying we are going to address that kind of violence by wrecking more violence. So where is this going to end? So we are only going to actually keep on perpetuating a cycle of violence, because this crime is not going to disappear. The 2020 hangings have shown the complete futility of that. I don't know what was served. And to say that, that is the, whether they deserve it or not is a separate question. If you are on deterrence, the deterrence does not exist. And whether somebody deserves to be hanged, well, actually, then we'll have to be hanging quite a few men across this country on a daily basis, because that is the rate of rape in this country. And I don't know if that's what we want to do. And many of them will be powerful people, many of them will be your friends, many will be relatives, many will be within the family, etc., etc. So we don't know what is it that we are heading for. So this demand for violence is A, coming out of despair, and B, coming out of ignorance, who have no comprehension of the anatomy of this sexual violence. And sexual violence has to be understood, that where are its cause, and its causes are multiple. And thirdly, it is coming out of people who are who are quite comfortable with, as long as it is these dirty bad men. But you can have the head of the wrestling federation who doesn't get arrested. You can have many others. It is a class issue, it is a caste issue. Bhavari Devi's gang rapists have not been punished. They have not been sentenced. They were acquitted on grounds of a reading of caste. And therefore, to say everybody is getting sentenced, and no, the violence will not go away because everybody is not getting sentenced. And when it comes to lives of Dalit women, their daily lives and their socioeconomic marginalization embodies sexual violence inherently in it, to which no system responds whatsoever. So, this whole thing about, and I think it's a distraction. It's a distraction that all governments, all political parties use to their advantage, because nobody actually cares. That's the only understand. It's work, right? You'll have to invest in a system. You'll have to make sure the investigator knows, the police knows what to do. I have done cases where we have written messages after messages saying, please take her clothes. You have prosecutor who barely ever reads the file. Yes, in cases like this, you will have a special public prosecutor and you'll have a time bound trial. But that's not a benchmark. That's an exception. And we don't want exceptions. We want these to be benchmarks. You will not have, you will have prejudice within the courtroom. Already people are saying, but what was she doing? Who is she? What are these biases and prejudices? What is the work we have done within the system to get rid of these? This is a lot of work within the criminal justice system, and the work for society as a whole is intergenerational. It will have to start from the classroom. Unfortunately, families are not teaching this. Families teach patriarchy. Families teach violence against women. Families teach disrespect of women. That is the foundation of the family.
That was going to be my next point of conversation, ma'am. Why do some crimes against women, sexual violence, get people to rally much more than the others? Given the rate of violence we see against women in this country, sadly, not all cases are treated equally, and it's not necessarily because one is more brutal than the other. So why does it happen this way?
I mean, I'm not a sociologist, anthropologist. I won't be able to answer that with any precision. But I think there are some things which do capture public imagination. At the same time, I actually think that violence does play a role in it. And I think the Nirbhaya protests, important as they were, the changes that they brought in the law, which were long overdue, and the feminist movement had been seeking that legal reform. I wonder whether a rape that does not overtly show violence and therefore overtly shows lack of consent, will it get people angry? Because people are so quick to assign the blame to the woman, and that she would have overtly or implicitly in some way caused or provoked or invited this violence upon her. So the presence of the violence and the brutality and the horror actually negates that part and allows us to be angry.
And also, the women,
Uh,
the victim here should have demonstrated objection enough for people to believe, or else it's not
right.
deemed to be enough.
And evidence across the world, including by WHO, shows that not more than 30% of rapes ever have signs of physical violence. So, when it comes to even being angry, I think we need to go back to what the Verma Committee report said. It said sexual violence or violence against women is only is a symptom of the discrimination, inequality that women uh, are subjected to in this country. So all those people who march on the streets, are they willing to ensure that in their homes, in their lives, in their classrooms, in their colleges, in their hospitals, in their workplaces, in their newsrooms, in the courts, women are treated equally and without discrimination? They're nobody, even in the family. Are you willing to treat the women as equals and not discriminate with them on anything, whether it is the food or it is the liberty to go out or to study or to inherit property? Will those people marching on the streets agree to that? We are only agreeing to saying, don't brutally do this to her, because that's what some men do. What about the domestic violence happening in your home, which you are aware of, which you are covering up for? So this is not going to go away, and that's why I'm saying we have to confront ourselves as a society. We can stop telling ourselves we are an old civilization. Well, in the old civilization, in our if you read about that, the violence against women is actually a running theme. So contemporary India, because women are no longer willing to accept this. That is the only reason to hope. Those women marching, the doctors marching, that is where hope is. And that is why we need to compel the state to change. And I really think let's all do a safety audit of our workplaces. We are not going to wait for the state. The state is not going to usher in the change. We will give those reports and say, this is what you need to change. This is the timeline we are giving.
Ma'am, this is a case that's being tried under the new laws. Does the new evidence law make it any better for evidence to be gathered, or do you think there have already been too many compromises at the investigation stage for it to be effective?
See, the evidence is there in the postmortem report, and the autopsy report would be very important. Uh, from what I again read from news reports, that there is semen, etc., which has been found, and therefore sexual assault stands confirmed in some ways. But I imagine there will be some DNA testing which will be done. Uh, and they will I actually think the weakest link of the criminal justice system, our statutes are not the framework of law within the Evidence Act, etc. That's not where the infirmities are. The infirmities are in the actual investigation, in cordoning off a crime scene, in collecting the material, in taking statements, uh, and then being able to, for the fact that they did. I mean, he's, as far as I would say he's a suspect, and I will not jump the gun and call anybody an accused, because that's exactly the kind of thing that we saw happen in Hyderabad, where three juveniles eventually and one other person who were suspects were eliminated, because and then the police was garlanded for the glory of the trigger happy police. And therefore I'm saying we need to know, we need to allow that investigation to happen, but let's keep a close eye and scrutiny, and because, and I think the court has done the right thing by asking the CBI to file regular status reports, because the court in a sense will keep seeing what is the progress. Is it moving along proper lines? In my experience, the investigation by the police in most cases is very casual. It almost shows you a lack of skill in how to conduct the investigation. And then comes the stage of prosecution, where, leave aside this case for a moment, please go to any court where a rape trial is taking place and please see whether the prosecutor even knows which witness is coming and what is the evidence that is to be put forth. So the beyond the we are really seeing the public at its wits end, seeking some kind of reform and change. The system is in sheer inertia because the political class doesn't care, and there is no accountability. Uh, I, I think the way change has to happen, we need to ask these hard questions when they come asking for our votes. Everybody is talking about women being the new voting constituency, and all that. A lot of figures and facts are floating around, which is very good. Yes, women must be assertive, active citizens, but active and assertive citizens have rights, and if you don't fulfill those rights, we are going to not stand by you. And asking for basic right to life is not asking for too much, and not just for women in formal workplaces. It's for each one of them.
Ma'am, my final question is on the role of media, the way you see it, because also there is a lot of misinformation, disinformation being floated through social media, and some, mainstream media too have indulged. This could have adverse effect. So, what sort of a role do you think media plays in reporting on the crime itself, and also on the kind of reactions that we've seen around the crime?
Yeah, I think the media's. So, if I was to take a historical perspective, I think uh, through the entire Nirbhaya protest, there was a lot of education that one tried to do of the media, with the media. For instance, lesser media outlets now use the term eve teasing, and more are now acquainted with the term sexual harassment. This is in no less measure because there are way more women in the newsrooms. And that, to my mind, is the turning point of the media on these issues. It is the women in the newsrooms who made these issues, these stories important and flagged them. It is the women who changed the vocabulary that is to be used, and we are seeing that change. So today, story and reporting on sexual violence does get front page, or media portals are compelled to report. They're no longer just writing about rape as a casual thing that happened, which nobody needs to pay attention to. At the same time, recently you had the whole Prajwal Ravana thing come out in the open, and one kept hearing this term called sex scandal. What is the sex scandal? It's a case of sexual exploitation where mass sexual offenses have taken place by this man over many, many women. So that vocabulary is still in the making, because we haven't understood what is the violence, what is the offense, what is it that women are saying when they're saying that this is a wrong. And that is partly because as a society we still haven't understood that women really do have a right to sexual autonomy and bodily integrity. It's a work in progress, and so that is there. And then we do have, because of the way technology operates and the speed at which news is being imparted, you do have misinformation and you do have disinformation, which clutters and actually confuses you, that what is it that you are reading. There are many, even in this incident, there's a lot out there. And it's very hard to understand, is there some merit in this? Is there some veracity to this report when you are reading it? And I don't know what, I suppose these are editorial issues, that what is the editorial team doing, what are the kind of filters. I mean, how does it matter if your news hits the internet 5 minutes later? I would imagine accuracy is way more valuable. And the other thing I would say is, the media needs to do follow ups. The media flits and jumps, and I understand that part. But occasionally, go back and see what happened, because that is how you create accountability. Nobody goes back. If you don't go back, there is no accountability. The political class banks on our us moving from one distraction to the other, and of course the spectacle of encounter and death penalty, which people feel, oh, we are relieved, there are four bad men out of our midst and four bad men have been shot. Well, the bad men are probably in your backyard, so I don't know where you're going to run from them. And the accountability, the media needs to see itself as a partner in this. And I think we see some glimmers of that, but I would say it's largely the women in the media, to whom I give full credit for having created that space. The men in the media, the best of them, haven't really understood that, if a person has been accused of by multiple women of sexual harassment, his rehabilitation, social rehabilitation, is not their job.
On that note, I thank you very much for joining. There's a lot for us to unpack and think about as a society as well. And on our part, I think almost as an act of introspection, we can assure our viewers that we will keep coming back and doing more follow up, so that, like you said, the political class, the police who bank on our amnesia, selective amnesia, they don't have that luxury anymore. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.